In this lesson, I will show you how to draw a manga face from the front and from the side. The basics are pretty similar to a realistic face when you draw it. But there's some key differences, and I'm going to show you how you can use them to bend it to your own style. Let's start drawing. First of all, I want you to draw a circle, a little bit on the top of the paper. So not in the middle, because we will have to draw also the chin. The circle is, you could say, the place where you have the brain of the character. And like I said before, make sure to sketch it out. You don't have to make it perfect, but try to use sketching lines, so not to make one line, but several small lines to build up the circle. And making a circle is really, really hard, no matter if you're a professional or a new artist. So the circle is where you have the brain of the character. Now we're going to add the chin of the character. First of all, I want you to make a line from the top of the head, in the middle of the head, straight through. Try to make it even on both sides. Follow all the way down and even continue below the circle, like this. This is because we're going to make the chin. The length of the chin depends on how old the character is. So if it's a child, you can make it really small and short. That way the character will have a very round face. If it is an adult or an older person, you will have a more long face. Really, really old characters, they tend to have rounder faces, so they can be more closer to a child's size of the face. But an adult, then you have a longer chin, so you can make the line a little bit longer. Do not make it longer than, I think, a third of the circle. That's approximately a good size. So this middle line is a support line. We're going to erase some of the lines all through the process. So in the end, you will have a clean manga face, but we need these support lines, these guidelines. Next step is the chin, the cheeks and the chin. To make this, I recommend you to start on the tip of the circle, the side here, and make like a curved line all the way down to the tip of the line here. This curve, remember, since you're making the cheeks, don't make it straight, make it as curved as possible. Not too curved, but if it's a more chubby character, it can be quite curved. So we make a line here that goes like a curved line down to the chin. And the same thing on the other side. My recommendation is to, when you draw this, you can actually take the paper and put it towards a light source and look at it from behind. That's usually when you see if you have made mistakes. So now we have both cheeks here. I can correct my artwork a bit. So I'll correct it like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, not even our faces are fully symmetrical. So we all always have a little bit different on each side. So your manga character doesn't have to be symmetrical either. There's one more guideline that I want you to draw before we start drawing the actual part of the face. But to be able to draw this line, I want you to first erase this curved line that is inside of the head. We don't need it anymore. We just wanted it to have the placement of the circle. So I'm going to erase this. This way I can clean up the face as I go. And I can, in the end, have a finished manga portrait for my character. So the final guideline that I want you to make is the one for the eyes. And the eyes are in the middle of the head. So you have equal amount of head below as to the top of the head. So find the middle of this line, and that's where you're going to make the line for the eyes. You can also, if you want to, add one more line between the eye line, this line here, and the chin, which is where you're going to have the nose, the tip of the nose. The actual position of the tip of the nose can vary depending on how old the character is, or, for example, if the character have a pointy nose or a nose tip that is dipping down. So you don't have to put the line, just remember that approximately in the middle here is where you're gonna place the nose, somewhere there. So this is the basics of a head. Before we continue, I would like to show you how to draw a manga eye. Just a basic structure of a manga eye. And then I will show you how you can add in details or change the shape to make it fit your character, both your style and the emotion and the personality of your character. Always start with the eyelids. We have the upper eyelid, which is more curved. Just like on a real eye, the upper eyelid in a manga is the one that closes and opens the eye, while the lower eyelid is usually just staying there. It's a little bit thinner, not as bent and not as long as the upper eyelid. You can even make it thicker because it has a lot more eyelashes than the lower eyelid. So that's why in manga you can make it quite thick to make it remarkable and noticeable. Especially when characters are in a paper or in a manga book, it's important that you can see the eyes. That's the place where you find emotions or personality traits of the character. Like you can see, I don't draw a line where I connect them. That is a personal choice. You can decide to connect the eyes if you want to, the upper or lower eyelid. But in general, in our own eyes, as you can see on yourself, we don't have as much eyelashes just in the middle, in between here, close to the nose, or on the outside. So the upper eyelid, that has a lot of eyelashes. That one is very marked, but we don't have to have so much on the bottom or on the sides. Next step is the iris, the colored part of the eye. Draw it like a circle. If the eye is very big, you can draw it almost like an oval. So this part is colored. If you use colored pencil, you would definitely color the iris of the eye. In the middle of the iris, that's where you have the pupil. So make it as a black circle. Usually it follows the shape of the iris. So if the iris is a little bit oval, then the pupil is also oval. But it can also be round, or it could just be a small dot. It all depends on your style. As you can see, this eye looks a little bit boring, almost a little bit dead right now. So one thing that we do in manga to add in more life and depth in the eye, it's to add light in the eye. So in our eyes, because they are watery, they reflect light. And this reflection, we can draw it as a white circle. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. You can have more light sources, and then you can add more circles, like round or oval ones. Sometimes you can add stars. You can be very creative as you wish. So it all depends on what inspiration you have. These are light reflections. So remember not to color them in. The rest of the iris you can color in if you use colors. Or with your pencil, you can use, like I told you before, this kind of gradient to make it darker on top and then go down and then make it lighter as you release pressure on the pen. The more further down you go, the less pressure you have on the pen, and then you get this gradient from top to bottom. It's important to put the gradient with the shadow on top, because the shadow is actually the shadow from the eyelashes and from the eyelid. So you want to have it on top like this. You can also add in details, like sometimes people add in some lines like this, almost shaping the texture of the iris. Or you can add in, for example, a straight line like this, sometimes some artists do, to create a depth as well, or design to the eye. Exactly how you decide to color or to detail your eyes depends on your style, but it also depends on if the character is closer to the camera or more further back. Of course, if it's a very small character, you need to draw less details. So you need to have different detail levels of the same character's eye. This is the base of an eye. Let's add some details to make it even more interesting. First of all, above the eye, you can add a thin line, which is the crease above the eye. So this is not the eyebrow. The eyebrow is above this. This is a crease, so to make it feel more 3D and feel like there's skin there that's going to close the eye with. If you want to draw eyelashes, you need to know which side of the eye is towards the nose and which side is towards the outside of the head. So if we say this is where the nose is, there's going to be less eyelashes here, and there's going to be more eyelashes on the outside. So let's add some eyelashes. Eyelashes, you start with the pen on the eyelid, like this, top eyelid, and then you draw the line a little bit bent upwards, like a curve, like this. If it's this very detailed, very zoomed in eye, you have to build up the line to make it thicker in the bottom and thinner in the top, like this. But if it's actually a very small character, you could do this in one stroke. So like putting the pen on the paper, pressing down, and then lifting the pen to get the eyelash shape. So this is something you have to practice a little bit, but when you've learned it, you can see how you can create different shades of eyelashes, different length, and you can have more or less of them. And that also affects what kind of character you're creating. If you want to, you can also, like I said, you can close between the bottom eyelid and the top eyelid, but try to make it more on the outside than the inside. So, for example, you can continue the upper eyelid down here, or continue the bottom down up and almost meet or completely meet. And you can also add more eyelashes in these spots if you want to. Exactly how you design your eye is up to you. And like I said, keep a lot of manga books close by, get inspired, learn how different character looks. Don't forget the eyebrows above. You can decide to have a thick eyebrow or a thin eyebrow, but the important part is that the eyebrow should be able to be used for emotions. So don't make it too small, because you need to be able to use it when the character is angry, it should be pointing down, and so on. This is a basic manga eye. Now I want to show you how to put it on your actual manga face. So let's put the eye away and let's take your face again. I'm sure a lot of you have had this problem that you start drawing the manga eye and you make a really pretty eye on one side and you're really satisfied with it, and then you can't copy it to the next side. I bet you've been in that situation. I've been there too. The trick is to draw the eyes at the same time, step by step, just like we did with the manga eye we just drew. So first of all, I want to show you how to divide this eye line into 3 parts, because we need to put the eyes with a bit of separation. So approximately 1 eye in between the eyes, an empty space there. This line, the eye line, you can, if you want to, erase a little bit of the vertical line here. Erase it, just to be able to see just the horizontal line. And now divide it into 3 equal parts, like this. You can use a ruler if you want to, but if you want to, you can also just measure with your pen and make sure that they are approximately the same size. I think they are. So, this part here will be an eye, this part here will be an eye, and in between it will be empty. You can decide to make the eyes smaller, but I'll show how to make big eyes because it's easier for you to see what I do. You can always decide to make them smaller or design them in another way. Like I said, keep manga books close by and learn from them. You might find that some artists do it another way. So I start by drawing 1 upper eyelid from this mark all the way to the end of the head. You can decide to end it somewhere earlier than the end of the head, but I'm gonna draw it all the way to the end of the head like this, like a big manga eye. And I'm gonna make it thick. Now I need to make an upper eyelid on the other side the same way. Like a bent line like this, and I need to make it as thick as the other one. I'm gonna make it really thick like this. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Like I said before, we're not symmetrical in our faces either, so the character doesn't have to be symmetrical. It's just important that you find a way to copy by just step by step making the eyes like this. You can now decide if the character is younger or older, depending on how far down you put the lower eyelid. If I put it very far down, the eyes will be very big, which is common with very young characters or very cute characters. But if I want the character to be a little bit more old or adult or maybe mischievous or determined, I would put the eyelid more closer to the upper eyelid to make the eyes a little bit thinner. I would put them here somewhere in between. That's why I haven't drawn a line where the bottom eyelid should be. It's all up to you, to your design. The important part is to try to put them on the same level. So make sure they end up on the same level like this. If you decide to, you can put more on the outside. Don't put too much eyelids on the inside, because that's where we don't have as much eyelashes. It's all about the eyelashes. Even though you don't draw eyelashes on the character, they're still there creating the shape of the eye, because they are very dark. Now that we've come so far, we can actually erase the eyeline. We don't need it anymore. The next step is the iris. When you draw the iris, the placement is very important because it depends on what direction the character looks. So if it looks to the side, both of them should point to the same side. Usually, when we look towards something, we focus the eye in a direction on one point. And that means you have to place the iris a little bit closer to the nose, like this. 1, like here. As you can see, there's less eye white here and more on this side. And the same on the other side. we place it a little bit closer to the nose, like this. So the next step was the pupil in the middle of the iris. I will make a really small pupil just for showing another design. Really small dot in the middle of the eye, like this. Next step was the light reflections, remember? So we have the right side here, and if the light is on one side coming from the right, it should also be on the right side in the other eye. It's from the same light source. And if we have multiple light sources, they should be in the same spot in both eyes. Otherwise, it will look like the eyes are in different places. And you can make the shading from the top to the bottom like this, darker on the top, and then lighter the further down you get. And you can sit and shade as much as you want. Don't put too much time into it though, because manga is all about being effective and drawing fast. And that's why you don't need to put too many details, because you will have trouble drawing the character multiple times if you want to make a manga, an anime, or a game with this character. We also can add some details in the eyes if you want to. You can add this line I talked about, more of a style detail this way. And also maybe some texture or shades like this. And that way we can create a character that is unique and has a unique style. It's all up to you what you decide to do and the shape of the eye. Don't forget you can add in this small crease above the eye to give it a little bit more 3D effect like this. And if you want to add eyelashes or maybe just a pointy end like this, you can do that. Try to maximize the design without adding too many details, because you will have to draw this character again if you want to make a manga. So it's all about a balance in the design. We can add a little bit more down here to make it a little bit more shape of the eye. You can redo these eyes many times. It's all about finding a design that you can remember and that you can practice in your muscle memory in your arm. The next step is the eyebrows. And like I said before, they need to depict an emotion. So don't just draw a straight line. Think about an emotion. So I'm just gonna draw some determined manga brows. A little bit angry or determined. The next step is the nose. The nose is not very important in manga. So usually in manga you just draw the middle line here. If it's an adult character, you can mark a long line, because you have a longer nose. If it's a child, you can just make a smaller line. And then on one side of the nose, you add the shadow. And the shadow, you usually either you shade it like this with a gradient, or you can easily just make a triangle like this. And this represents the shadow on one side. You can erase some of the middle line here just to see. If you want to, you can fill it in with some shading, like I said. And if you want to, you can also add a little bit of a nostril on the other side. How you draw the nose also depends on what angle the face is in. So we'll talk about that in future lessons. Last but not least, the mouth. You start with the corners of the mouth as two small dots on each side of the middle line. And if the mouth is open, draw two lines in between these dots. And if it's closed, you just draw one line. You can also make the mouth just as a round circle or a shape. Look in manga books and learn from other artists how to draw screaming or happy or sad mouths. It's all about different expressions. I will erase the line now to be able to draw the mouth. So now that we have an empty space here, I will draw one line between. As you can see, I make it darker in the corner and less line in the middle. That way it looks more like a mouth that is clenched together. Below the mouth, you can add a little bit of a shadow. So by adding a little bit of a line or a shadow down here, it feels like there's a lip there. A little bit of small details. And this is all of what manga is about. It's all about finding simple details to convey a face. Let's erase this line as well, like this. And last but not least, let's add some ears and neck. My ears is in the same level as my eyes and my nose. So here we have the manga eye. Let's start with a pen here and make a little bit of a upside down J like this. Almost like the shape of a heart. And the other one on the other side. Try to make them the same size. And erase if you need to correct it. So that's the ears.